everyone, and welcome to a new video. And in this video I'm going to be continuing my palette series that I've been doing for you, and I've been getting some good feedback on those videos. And today I thought I would talk about palettes that aren't necessarily warm or cool toned per se, but have a mix of the two combined into one. And to show you what I actually mean by that, I have a palette that I'm not going to be featuring in this video, and this is the Kat Von D Monarch palette. This palette has been discontinued, which is why I'm not going to put it in the rest of this video, but it does show you very nicely what I mean with a mixed palette. So this palette consists of 3 different quads. It has a warm quad, it has a cool quad, and it has a neutral quad. So this does all 3 things in one almost, and all of the palettes that I'm going to be talking to you about today have that same premise of warm toned as well as cool toned and more neutral toned eyeshadows all combined into one palette. I have 4 palettes to show you, and let's just get to it. So the 4 palettes that I'm going to be talking to you about today are the Stila Eyes Are the Window to the Spirit palette, the Viseart or Viseart Sultry Muse, the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom palette, and the Decay Naked Smoky. As with all of these videos, I will be talking you through each palette, what each palette brings me personally, what it might bring you as well. I will talk about the price point, how many shadows you get, how many grams of product you get, and as usual, I will finish off the video by going over each one of these palettes and sort of giving you my thoughts on who each palette might be right for. Because of course each of these palettes do a slightly different thing, and even though I have my favorites, it may not be the one that's right for you. So we're going to start off by talking about the Stila Eyes Are the Window of the Spirit palette. This is super shiny, so I'm sorry if I'm blinding you in any way. And as you can see, this palette has 12 different shades, and these 12 shades reach from more cool toned, neutral toned, to more warm toned right here at the top. It has the infamous Stila Kitten eyeshadow. These are the style of palettes that replace those old ones, and you can still find very similar shades in these new palettes. If size is something that matters to you, then these little Stila palettes are pretty good. In total, this contains 14.5 grams of product, and you do get an array of shades here, so you do get quite a bit of versatility. You get like your lighter shades here, your mid-tone shades here, and then your darker shades are all at the top. There isn't a matte black in this palette, but you do get a mixture of both matte and shimmer in this palette, even though most of this has a little bit of shine to it. When it comes to the color scheme, however, I think this has a very interesting color scheme. You get your browns, golds, and like champagnes in this row. You get some warmer tone browns and this really nice peachy shade as well. This burgundy reddish shade is definitely something that adds a bit of interest to this palette. And then you get 2 grays. This is very nice for a smoky eye. You do get a matte dark brown as a bit of liner or to deepening up a shade. You get a good matte transition shade that goes well into the crease, as well as a matte highlight, and you've got your shimmers right here. So a very versatile palette, I think, that can do a lot depending on what you like. The second palette that I'd like to talk to you about is the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom palette. This is one that a lot of people love. As with all of the palettes I'm showing you today, you've got your warms, you've got your neutrals, and you've got your cool tones right here. Each row is laid out like this, as well as your lights, your blending shades, your mid-tones, and your darker tones in here. Again, this is a very shiny, very compact palette. In total, you get 18 grams of product in this palette, which is almost 4 grams more than the Stila palette has, and you do get 12 shades for that as well. However, where the Stila has a couple of pops of color, this doesn't really have that. These are all like your just neutral shades with a shimmer in each row, and the rest of it is matte. So this definitely has more of a matte feel to it. This palette is much more neutral than the Stila one I just showed you. That one still has a couple of pops of color and that interesting shimmery gray shade, for instance. This definitely has more like brown tones, neutrals. You get a little bit of a gray scheme here in the cool section, but all of this is quite brown. All of these palettes seem to come in very compact sizes, as does the Viseart palette. This is the Sultry Muse, as I said. This is an all shimmer palette, and this is definitely one of the most expensive palettes that I personally own. As you can see, this also has some cool tones, warm tones, and neutrals. You will find the cool tones along here, the warm tones are here, and then this row right here is much more of the neutrals. This is all shimmer, so this definitely needs something that needs to be combined with this in order for it to work. You can definitely get a full look out of this. I did that as well for the review that I did on my blog, but it does make that this palette is a little bit limited in what it can do. You do get an array of like different tones and different colors as well. You get a nice copper. You have these rosy shades that are absolutely stunning. You get a good dark gray that, despite the shimmer, is still very intense. I sometimes find that dark shimmery shades can look a lot lighter on the eye than they do in the pan. This definitely doesn't do it. This is very true to color, and it blends very well as well. Quality-wise, this is definitely one of the better palettes in my collection. It's just that when I start making looks with this, it does take a little bit more effort. In total, this palette gives you 24 grams of product, which is the most in this entire video. And additionally, this again has 12 different shades, so you do get a lot of product in each pan. And then last but not least is the Urban Decay Naked Smoky. This palette also has a combination of cool and neutral tones. Again, this comes with 12 shades. Each pan contains 1.3 grams of product, so times 12, again, that makes it something along the 14-15 gram mark, so very similar to the Stila palette, for instance. You have a lot of cool tones right here in the middle, but you also get some warm tones right here. This brown is very warm too, but you also get some neutral shades to sort of blend things out and make that work. On my fair skin, this purple doesn't show up as purple, it goes on black, so that's a bit of a shame because that makes this palette just a lot less versatile for me. However, if you aren't as pale, then this will definitely show up and you do get a fun, cool toned pop of color. So before we move on to the nitty gritty of this, I want to point out a few of the shades that I'm wearing on my eyes today, as well as the favorites in each of these palettes. I've used 2 shades from each one of these palettes that is lying in front of me. Starting with the Stila palette, the ones that I used are the 2 more like rosy burgundy tones right here on the right side of the palette. My favorite shades in this are definitely this Pagali shade. Kitten is one of my favorites too, as well as this dark gray right here in the top. Pagali is what I use to deepen up my crease, and I use that other shimmery shade on my lower lash line. The Tarte palette is one that I really like to use for everyday wear, and I think you can tell just by looking at some of these pans which ones of these are my favorites. This is Firecracker. That's definitely one of my favorite shades in this palette. It's the perfect all over the lid shimmer shade. I also really like Rebel, which is right here at the top, and that's what I've used today to sort of darken up my lower lash line. And I've used Jet Setter, which is the one right here, to sort of have a transition shade in my crease. I don't really have any favorites in this palette because I don't really use it enough, which is a bit of a shame really, but I really like the copper here, and today I really focused on this rosy shade, which I'm wearing all over my eyelid, and I used a little bit of this pinky tone highlight shade to blend my lower lash line towards my inner corner. From the Urban Decay palette, I really like these gray shades here. What are these called again? This is Slanted and this is Dagger. It makes for a perfect smoky eye on my complexion. I really, really like that. So that's what I really keep this palette around for. But today I used this light shimmery shade, which is called High, and this light matte shade, which is called 13. This is my brow bone highlight today, and I've used this in my inner corner. So let's talk about price point. The Stila Eyes Are the Window of the Spirit palette, which is this one, retails for around 40 to 45 euros, depending on where you get it. I got mine off of Beauty Bay. The Tarte Tartelette in Bloom is one that I ordered from Sephora, and this retails for around the $45 mark as well. The Urban Decay Naked Smoky. This retails for about 54 or 55 euros. And as you may have noticed, we are going from cheapest to most expensive. The Viseart palettes are notoriously expensive. These retail for $80 in the US. Over here we pay around 75 euros. You can only get these online. I got mine from Boozy Shop, which is a Dutch online web store where they sell a lot of brands that aren't readily available. So let's talk about which palette might be right for you. I think that the Stila Eyes Are the Window of the Spirit palette is great for someone who isn't afraid of using a little bit of shimmer on their eyes and who's looking for a neutral palette that has a few pops of color. And if you're not very like cool toned or warm toned, or if you want a mix of things, I think this is one of your best bets. You do get a nice array of like cools and neutrals and warm tones in here, as well as some interesting pops of color. So if you're looking for a palette that's very versatile, I would definitely recommend this one. Moving on then to the In Bloom by Tarte. This is a great palette, like I already mentioned, for everyday wear. If you're in the office or going to school and you can't wear a lot of makeup, then this is definitely something that you can pull in and just create a very natural everyday look with. You do have some dark shades right here on the outer edge of the palette as well, so if you want to darken up a look, make it more smoky and a little bit more nighttime appropriate, you definitely have that option with this as well. Do bear in mind, however, that this is a very neutral palette and you will not get the versatility out of the Stila palette, for instance. What you do get, however, is a very, very clever array of these shadows. Each row is pretty much a look, so this is also a very good palette if you're a beginner with makeup, because this palette pretty much lays it all out for you, or you can just like bounce around and do it that way, but this is definitely a palette that is very fail-safe. The Viseart palette then, this isn't one that I would recommend if you're not really a makeup enthusiast, or if you already have a lot of neutral palettes like I do. This is a very pretty palette, don't get me wrong. The quality is definitely there. You get a ton of product in here, but to me, to be quite honest, I hardly ever reach for this. It just needs mattes to really make it work a lot better, I find. However, if you're a makeup artist, if you are someone who does bridal makeup, this is an absolute stunning palette to have. You do have to go through a little bit more effort to make this one work. And that, to me, getting ready in the morning isn't always worth it. Then the Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. To be quite honest, I wasn't planning on getting this when it came out. I bought it because I saw the packaging. To be quite honest, the packaging is the best thing about this palette, which is of course the worst reason to buy a palette. But since there's only 2 shades in here that I do absolutely love, I do still feel that I can justify keeping it in my collection. The warm tones and the cool tones are so far apart in the cool and warm tone spectrum that I don't really find that they match very well together. So this palette doesn't have a lot of versatility. And another thing that you should know is that these 2 shades here, which is Radar and Armor, are repeats from some of the Urban Decay Vice palettes. If you're looking for a smoky palette and you definitely want to make deep dark eyeshadow looks, then this is a great one. This palette just has a couple of downsides to me, which is why I think that 54 euros is quite a lot of money to pay for something like this. So there you have it, 4 different palettes that have a mix of both cool toned and neutral tones all wrapped into one little package. I'm definitely going to be doing more of these palette videos, so I would love for you to just subscribe to my channel. So if you're looking for a variety of content, then please keep on watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!